Is it comfortable? Is it thinking all sorts of thoughts? Is it in the past, future? Just notice what your eye is doing. And if you're feeling a little scattered, a little jumpy mind, you might want to take a few deep breaths. Think about the reason that you showed up today. And try to generate a sincere motivation, a sincere intention to use this time well. Perhaps with the wish that it benefit your own mind, increase your understanding, and just try to expand that motivation and to include the wish that it not just benefit you, but that it's going to ripple out to benefit those around you. So let's recite the 4 measurables. Who's in charge of this today? It's on page 34 of the prayer book, and it'll also be up on the screen in a certain amount of time. There we go. Okay. That's the dedication prayers. Scroll down. The 4 measures. And it's helpful if you don't turn the screen while we're talking. So when you get to the bottom, then scroll up, and I'll try to follow. But I find it very hard to read while the screen's moving. So just as a tip. May all sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all sentient beings be inseparable from the happiness that is free from suffering. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free from attachment for friends and hatred for enemies. And then go to page 98. For those of you who consider themselves Buddhist, I'll recite, I think it's, there it is. Scroll down. There we go. So this is the refuge prayer. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. Thanks. It's a learning curve, this technology. So, hello, everybody at home. Well, okay. So we've been talking about becoming your own therapist. How is that? What is, and we've been talking about why would we need to do that? What was our answer to that? Deer in headlights. To face situations better, because that's what therapists help us do, right? Yes. To not suffer. So why would we need a therapist to not suffer? Our therapist in the room. To give you a different perspective. What does Lama Yeshe say in his book, Becoming Your Own Therapist? We are suffering, and what are we in particular suffering from? Yeah, and what is that?
Not knowing.
I love this. It's just interesting because to me, this is a line that stands out in the book, and not one of you brought it up. No, it's that we're all mentally ill. And it's just a matter of degree. So, and our mental illness takes the form around ignorance, around a misperception of how we exist. And from that, we have a misperception about what causes suffering and what causes happiness. And it just all goes downhill from there. So we've been talking about attachment. What is the mind of attachment in Buddhism? Oh, this is another hilarious moment. It involves grasping. It involves, what did someone say over here? It involves desire.
It's that it's a mind that exaggerates the qualities of something, seeks to not be separated from it.
That's the textbook definition. It is the mind that
exaggerates the good qualities.
Yeah, it sees something desirable. So that's where desire comes. It sees something it experiences as pleasant or experiences something pleasant. And then it exaggerates the quality of the objects. It makes up a story. Has anybody ever felt infatuated? You know, that's attachment. You know, the expression love is blind. That's attachment. Oh, we make up a story about things that we like or find pleasant or attracted to, whether they're people or chocolate cake, you know, or climbing the highest mountain, you know, whatever it is. We do the same thing with things we don't like. We still exaggerate. We have the desire to be separated from things we don't like. What's the difference between the two? When we like something and when we don't like something.
How we feel.
Want to be separated from it.
Towards that one and we move away from the other.
Those are all true. What's the key difference in the exaggeration? What are you exaggerating?
Good and bad.
Good and bad. That we have this definite idea that, the things that we find pleasant, are sort of like by nature pleasant. Have you ever been shocked when someone doesn't like something you really like? And you're kind of like, how could you not like that? It's like, because we think that the desirableness of whatever that is in the object itself. That is not our perspective, not our experience. It's the object. How can someone not like chocolate? How is that possible? That's what my mind thinks. It's ridiculous, of course. There's no ingredient for the recipe list that says, put some deliciousness in there. Doesn't exist. We do the same thing with things we find unpleasant, don't like. We exaggerate how bad it is. We think there's badness in the object. So we end up with a feeling that the world is full of friends and jerks. And we very quickly put people in those categories. Doesn't last. It's just as soon as someone says something kind of like a jerk to us, they're a jerk. And we're surprised if it comes out of the mouth of a friend. And that's because we hold that friend in sort of this fixed way, that they'll only do things we like. That's why we call them our friend. You notice what's in power there? What makes someone your friend? What they do for me. They might agree with you. They do what your attachment wants.
You think like you're all the same.
You think that you all feel the same? What?
Yeah, you think like
You-
your outlook
right.
is same perception.
Yeah, there's no rough edges to the relationship, it's not like sandpaper. It's like, oh yeah, you like the same movies, you like the same music, you like the same people, blah, blah, blah. Is that possible? A therapist says no. One therapist, we have more than one in here, up to a degree. Because we can find people that we, seem to just get along with, right?
Like what he says in the book where he says superficial, yes.
Yeah.
But if you actually sit still deeper down, no.
Yeah. Because how long does it last? Till that first time they say something that's kind of like a jerk, or that you just disagree with. Like, oh, did she really say that? And then we question. But the key piece here is it's all from the perspective, friend, enemy, stranger, is all from the perspective of I. I know you and you do things I like. You can't get away from the I. I know you and you do things I don't like, or I don't agree with, or you say things, or you don't dress right, whatever it is, doesn't matter. Or I don't know you. So it's all within the frame of reference of what's done to you, whether the relationship serves you or whether it doesn't serve you, whether you see yourself as benefiting from it or not, whether you see someone as someone you wish you weren't around or someone you are glad you're around. What does that say about the other person?
Oh, projection.
Does it tell us anything about the other person?
I think they are also driven by their own thoughts and perceptions, like we are.
So that's about all we can know, isn't it? That they probably are evaluating us in exactly the same way. Can we, without, I've started that sentence badly. Okay, so if we really evaluate our friends, what do we end up with the best description of?
person.
Yeah, so a reflection of what we consider a friend, not necessarily what someone else is. Does that make sense? See, these are the things you want to think about and go, oh, I don't think that's true, you know, and then you sit down, you have some interaction with someone and you want to think about that. You want to really think about, why do you call this person a friend and this person, not necessarily an enemy. We don't use that word very often, but in our day-to-day life, but someone, like you can't be bothered with, or wish you could never were bothered. That's more accurate. So, because we really want to see where the I is in our thoughts. Oh, I don't like that opinion. Oh, I don't, this constant judging. And the reference, even if we don't use the word I, the I is in there. And that's our whole perspective. And not only that, everybody else is doing the same thing. So that can come into play when we're criticized by someone else. It can help us deal with criticism if we remember they're doing exactly the same thing we do when we're judging someone. They're responding to something they like or don't like, agree or disagree with. It may be valid. It's not that it's necessarily wrong. It's just their own perspective. And we can choose whether to take that on, go, that gives me something to think about, or go, yeah, right. We don't, so we don't have to necessarily see the words of someone else as truth. In a society that's full of people who have low self-esteem or lack of self-confidence, criticism can be seen as somehow an evaluation of you as a person. And sometimes it is, of course, somebody's sitting there going, man, you're such a jerk. Yes.
The thinking that comes to my mind is that I want that person is a
Sure. In fact, you've already made them permanent with that thought. Because when so this is one of the problems with the way we think, in that we exaggerate something. And the next step, this is what ignorance is about. We somehow in our minds make them that thing. So a friend can become we say things like that, or we did when we were in high school, So the problem there is this constant interchange of constantly changing objects into something that actually is fixed. And the Buddha said we do that in two moments. Like the first moment, we have perception. We see someone, the second moment, we make it fixed. And if it's something we like, oh, that's great, until they're not that. But we grasp, this is where grasping comes in. We grasp at our perspective as the truth, as absolutely the truth. Have you ever had thoughts like that? Oh no, he was absolutely wrong. And I am absolutely right. Or that's, we just have this a tendency to want to create why do we want to do this? We create something that's fixed and, definite. Yeah. Well, it acknowledges
perpetuation.
It perpetuates.
I guess the way that we're saying it, that okays us. I guess we're giving ourselves the okay of how we're seeing.
Yeah, we're certainly self-validating, you know. So do we like that?
We're partially trained to do that. So as children, we're trained to label.
I love how you go straight to like, we were trained.
That's a flower, because as a child.
We're born like that.
Right. Oh, so it's not.
This is the way we misperceive, you know? This is part of our difficulty. This is part of what creates suffering. Because one of the mistaken beliefs is, you know, that things that are fixed, unchanging is safe. You know, because like we can establish this person's a safe person. This person's not a safe person. And that gives us a certain sense of power of over our own safety. You know, we like to think that things don't change, that things are predictable. You know, but the trouble with it is, yeah.
I think it also goes on the what you mentioned about self-validation.
Mhm.
So I mean, if you think that's right to establish that people, because they make a mistake, that's a characteristic that they will carry for their whole lives. At the same time, it means that if you do something good, you got to think that you're going to be good for your whole life. So same way that you judge the external world, you also judge yourself, and that makes it you for think that you carry that you're always going to be this good person, that you're never going to be susceptible to situations like that may actually bring you to make
I'm not
bad-
sure.
bad decisions.
I do think it's self-validating. I don't think we have a whole lot of strength in self-validation, because what do we do next? That sometimes we do that. We criticize ourselves. What else do we do? We tell someone else. So-and-so did this. What do you think? And we want to have, you know, like affirmation that our judgment's correct. You might not do that, you know, but I know, you know, and maybe it's because I'm a girl and this is, you know, this is what I was taught, you know, that my views are probably not, you know, right. But, you know, the reality is that, yes, self-validation, we want to feel safe in our own view. That makes sense, doesn't it? We want, you know, it's like weird if we realize that we can't trust our perspective. That's not comfortable. You know, it's like why when you go into I don't know, fun house, remember those in amusement parks, anybody? When they have those weird mirrors, you know, and the hall of mirrors. And so you can't trust which is what's a wall, what's a passageway, and what's not. And it's just kind of, you know, it can be fun if you're like that and you just don't mind bumping into walls. But as you've seen with my subbing my toe, I don't like to do that. So it's kind of uncomfortable. We do feel comfort in trusting our perspective. And that makes sense because it's what we've got, right? You know, but sometimes we go to therapists to find out, you have another perspective I could look at because mine's not serving me well. And that's what this idea is we want, Lama Yeshe in that book is trying to show us that perhaps if we look, we'll discover that our perspective is leading us down a garden path. If that's an expression. Someone's not muted. Yeah.
So you said first moment, second moment.
Yeah.
What is that first?
It's just a direct perception. You know, so we see a cup. That first moment, we see a cup. You know, we know it's a cup just because we've learned that word. But even if we didn't know that yet, we have an object and, you know, we see it. You know, babies see it. They don't know what it is. They don't have any meaning to it, but they see it. And you know that they see it because they try to pick it up. You know, and put it in their mouths. Chew on it, don't bite it. So that's why we know they don't understand it. But that first moment, we see it. It's the next moment where what we call superimpose an idea about it that's false. You know, where we put some sort of permanence, you know, that it's independently a cup. These are complicated, well, not complicated, but this idea of how we misperceive takes a lot of thought. You know, because of course our day-to-day function is benefited by this idea that this is a cup and I know what it's for, and you know, and I don't have to think any more about it. And most of our thoughts of the day are kind of like that. You know, the clothes we put on, you know, the food we eat, the work we do. It's just, you know, we just kind of, you know, are on a roll. You know, we've learned what to do. We got, you know, like, so a new job is kind of a little bit, because you don't know what you're doing. It's, you know, so, but we create all kinds of discomfort, dissatisfaction in our own minds by the way we talk to ourselves, by our thoughts. You know, a simple example is if you have a favorite cup and you drop it and break it, you know, or someone steals it, you know, your work cup. Where's my work? You know, it's just a cup. You know, it's just a cup. But we can create in that moment because we're attached to this cup. Like I'm attached to this cup because it keeps my water cold. It's a sad truth. Yeah.
In the second moment.
Yeah, we have some judgment about it. You know, most of those judgments are neutral. I have mostly neutral judgments about this until it's missing. And then I discover maybe it's not so neutral after all. You know. But does not finding my cup, do I have to suffer from that? And if I do, yeah.
So it's almost like the attachment is always there. You don't even notice
Yeah.
to the point that something changed. And that's when it burns.
Yes. And this is when we can recognize the suffering. And this is what we want to do with introspection and self-awareness, is watching our thoughts and noticing when there's a sense of ease and then when there's a sense of unease. Because that unease is that mind of attachment not getting what it wants. And the better we are at recognizing it, and the better we are at asking questions of like, okay, where am I in that unease? What is it that I'm getting that I don't want? The better we can choose how to respond. You know? So if I come in here and there's a different glass here with cold water in it, and there's a certain unease that I have with it, I can easily kind of go, oh, it's because you don't have your cup. And then you can let it go because it's stupid. It's really easy to kind of go, oh yeah, that's not important. But often, what's another choice I could make?
Be mad the whole day about.
Yeah, I can't believe that they, you know, can you think of all the different thoughts we can have? I'm the teacher. For God's sakes, why don't they have my cup up there?
They did it on purpose.
They did it on purpose, or who's using my cup? I know Nicole has one just like it. Does she got she have my cup? She knows I love it. In fact, she gave it to me because she had one and I coveted it. I'm kind of exaggerating here, but not entirely.
Can we think like, okay, how it's meant to be that moment only,
See,
and
now
now to
that's,
move on and find a new cup.
well, that's the other choice. The choice is either to make this into something that's going to cause you pain, or recognize I would be creating my own suffering. And why do that? You know, it's like, how many times have you gotten mad and felt sort of like, you know, this is good. I have power. Da 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 da. and then you stay mad, and then your jaw starts to ache. Maybe you have a little headache, Anger's no fun. And this idea that I have a right to be angry, yeah, you have a right to suffer too, but do you want to? That's the question.
Yeah, I have a question. So the problem is, so we are humans, we have different emotions. We have jealousy, anger, attachment.
Because we're humans?
this and that. Yeah,
So your dog doesn't have that.
no, my.
It's
question-
because we have a mind. I'm just, first, let's get our terms. It's not just because we're human. It's because we have a mind.
So we have a mind, have different emotions. So the point is not to get into that at all. Our point is we got into that, that's fine, but not to stay in it and come out.
The Buddha's actually saying we can take control so that those so-called emotions, they don't make this distinction between emotion and intellect. It's just all thought. And there's some thoughts, some patterns of thought that accentuate suffering, and some patterns of thought that accentuate wisdom, So it is, accepting that because I feel that way, I must feel that way, anybody would feel that way, is all mistaken according to the Buddha. When we think everybody would feel this way, what are we doing? Justifying, generalize, we're self-validating. It's okay that I feel this way, anybody would feel this way. Instead of looking at like, yeah, but does it feel good? Like when your mom used to say, well, yeah, if your friend jumped off a cliff, would you follow them? I don't know if they said that to you. That was one of mine, all right. So, okay, so everybody would feel that way. Do we want to continue that trend? We want to look, is this response helping me
So how
or
do we-
hurting me?
How do we leave the situation, keep letting it go and start taking undue advantage of it?
Oh, you see, there we go.
Yeah.
It's somebody else's fault. It's not my fault. We have to break those. We have to look at that and start to question if it's true. We really have to, this is the kind of reason we want to look at our thoughts, and we want to go, okay, I'm making up this story about this other person who's taking advantage of me. So of course I'm angry. Why? Why does anger help? Why do we think anger helps?
To recognize.
It recognizes something that's not fair, perhaps,
Because everybody else does.
because everybody else does it. Yes,
Interesting you asked that question, because I think a lot of times when I'm angry, I don't think like that.
I
just
know.
think, why does it help? I just,
well, we just react because we are habituated to react in that way, and we suffer because of it. We don't like that feeling. So we want to look at it, is it possible to not react that way? What's the other way to react? What else can recognize injustice or being taken advantage of? What other state of mind? Wisdom. You don't have to be angry. You can just know I'm being taken advantage of. Okay, well that, I need to use that information for how I interact with this person. Do I have to feel angry? What is the anger saying?
Was that.
Well, but it's
When we react that it's-
well, it's also sort of saying that this person is doing something to me, as opposed to just, they're just doing this and I happen to be there, I'm the recipient of this action. But we kind of, to me, that I have a suspicion that I'm not alone, that there's a part of us that feel like somehow, if they liked me, they wouldn't do this to me. They respected me, they wouldn't do this to me. There's a to me part. This is where we have to, this is what I mean by looking for the I in there. What's the button for you? Where are you in there? Because that's the real thing that's fueling the anger response. And so if we want to suffer less, Does anybody think that their lives would not be better if they had less anger in it? Or do you want to hold on to your anger? I mean, it's fine. You want to hold on to your anger, that's fine. But if you have the suspicion that maybe anger is not a pleasant way to feel, and you would like less of it, then you want to really start looking that you have a choice in how you respond. Not immediately. Immediately you have anger, but then you can look at it and kind of go, what was that about? You know, I feel disrespected. Okay. But do you have to, what is this feel disrespected? It's someone else's perspective, isn't it?
So, of myself.
Now that's you doing that. So when someone else disrespects you, can you take it or leave it? I hear mumbling, I don't hear words. You can leave it. You can choose that, fine. You know, you can even let them know. I feel, you know, disrespected when you say that, you know. You know, so, you know, if they're friends, you might want to let them know that, oh, this is, you know, kind of sensitive for me.
You'd also have to check in if it's actually disrespect. Like my father's level of disrespect was do what I say, when I say, how I say, with a smile on your face. Right? So
That's different though. For him, you're disrespecting. If you, okay,
But when we want to check in with ourselves and go, wait a minute,
Yeah,
my pride. is
that's my
telling me I'm
point.
disrespected, but I'm actually not being disrespectful.
well, even if I am, I'm still respectable. We don't have to go that next step of thinking because they're treating me this way, I am this way. Even if they're treating me as worthless, as not valuable, as not intelligent, you know, whatever the thing is, we don't have to take it. We don't have to believe it. We can just go, this is good information to have. You know?
What if the anger doesn't build up initially, but it builds up later?
How does that happen? I know. It gets me. How does that happen? How does anger build up? Overthinking. We ruminate, don't we?
No,
We think we've just let it go, right?
So actually, if you let somebody know, okay, this is not acceptable, please don't do it again. And then you think, okay, I finished it off, it's done, and you move on, but then it happens over and over.
Because
And then it
why?
builds up.
Because why? Why does it happen again and again? So you're saying to the person that you don't want them to do that. What effect has that had?
I don't know.
Zero.
Nothing happened.
If they keep doing it again,
Yeah.
it's had no effect at all.
Yeah,
So,
we will tonight.
sorry, I'm gonna interrupt. So, because this is the conversation we have, don't we? Well, since they won't change, then I'm gonna get mad. Why? Why do we want to feel mad? What is it that about feeling mad? Do we feel like that's putting a sign on going, you were wrong? Of course we want to, right? I mean, hey, that's my mantra, you know? We need to understand that when anger builds up, when there just seems to be an annoyance, and then later on it's anger, we never digested that annoyance in the first place, you know? So anybody familiar with the idea in relationships of keeping score? Yeah, we're keeping score. Then the next time I do it, another mark, another mark, another mark, another mark. And so where's the limit? You have a little thing on there that says, okay, now it's okay to be angry. Like it's something desirable. What we want to start being is being able to understand that the process of not suffering has nothing to do with changing other people. We don't have control over that.
Say it again.
Maybe the process of stopping suffering. Is that what I said? Of not suffering. Thank you. The process of not suffering does not involve changing other people.
That makes work.
Oh, it's a lot of work. It's more work than trying to change other people because you can't do anything about the other person. So that's wasted energy. You can let friends know, and maybe that will, that might help the relationship and stuff. But, it's not like you can't make it go back so that they never said it. So it's this, understanding that we actually are wasting our energy trying to change others or trying to make the world a better place to live or, more perfect world, blah, 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 blah. Other people really, just like we want them. If we change and put our energy towards cutting out how we add suffering to our life, how we think that creates suffering, that we actually have some control over. We may not believe it, but as you practice it, you discover, oh, I don't have to walk around going all day long under the face of, social decorum, that we can, in fact, learn how to not add suffering to our daily life's hard enough. So the Buddha talks about, how that it's like an archer who shoots an arrow at a target, so it hits the target. So that's, that the person saying something to us, it hits the target. We don't have to shoot a second arrow and hit the target again. And that's what we do by rehearsing our anger and going through it and all the little dialogue we have about it. If we can start to investigate and perhaps recognize that these disturbing emotions, the emotions that when they arise in our mind disturb us, whether it's infatuation or frustration or rage, where was I going with that sentence? The arrows. Yeah. The arrows. That those, I don't remember where I was going with that sentence.
Investigating the reasons.
Well, investigating what we're doing with it that have created this disturbing state. Because it's really this, this idea of what about when you don't at first react and then later on you get really mad. That's a clue that we are not working with it at all. We keep, no buts. But oh, no, but now I forgot again. There's a point at which when you blurt out questions that I'm just going to lose my train of thought. I'm getting old. All right. So I'm trying to work with it. Okay. So if you're working, okay. So resentment, like when you haven't really looked at something, but you're keeping score and you keep and it's building up and building up. If in the beginning you kind of acknowledge, that unease that arises, you can digest that unease with wisdom. We can look at it just because they said that or think that doesn't make it true. If that's one of your fears, one of your fears is, am I somebody worthy of being taken advantage of? Do they think I'm stupid? Whatever that is, or maybe the unease is, have I been taken advantage of? Is there a limited amount? It's like, I had an occupational therapist tell me one time, she says, people seem to think they're going to run out of steps if I tell them to walk with their vacuum cleaner, as opposed to doing this number, which just kills your arm and your shoulder and everything else, your back, blah, blah. But if you walk, that you're going to run out of steps. We also seem to think that if someone takes advantage of us, we're going to run out of everything we have. Like if we help someone out and they just keep using us that way, then we'll just run out of being able to help others. Like it's a finite quality. Yes, sir. No. There's just, in Buddhism, the I/self, they're synonymous, are just labels that are convenient in communication. But that's it. Because we're all I's, aren't we? That doesn't tell us anything. We have different mental continuums, and we just happen to refer to them as I.
And when Buddhism uses the word ego, is that related to a
E-
attachment to the I?
Yeah. So ego, Lama Yeshe likes to use the word ego. It has to do with his teaching in the 70s and 80s, I think. So ego, I looked it up because I'm prone to do that. Only then I have to find where I looked it up. Not there. Okay, the definitions. A person's sense of self-esteem, self-importance. Things like synonyms are like self-esteem, self-importance, self-worth, self-respect, self-conceit, self-image, self-confidence, more self-love, maybe, I don't know. Early 19th century, from the Latin, literally means I. So that's, I think, the term Lama Yeshe is getting is I. Okay. Because in Buddhism, and I don't know if you've noticed this in the book, you know how we talk about, or we did, I don't know if we do this anymore because I haven't studied psychology in 30 years, you know, the unconscious or subconscious. In Buddhism, we just say that's an inattentive awareness. That the only reason it's unconscious or subconscious is because you haven't been looking. You don't hold your attention long enough to be able to know what's going on. That we can actually know what's going on in our mind with sufficient concentration, that there's nothing unconscious about it. That these habits like anger, you know, that just, you know, I tend towards anger. Some people tend towards the opposite of that, not the opposite of that, but sort of just going inward, maybe self-anger or something. I tend to be eruptive. So, yes.
So is it suppress the I or bring the I?
There's, except the fact there's no I to begin with. That the I itself, that what we associate with the I, me, is a story we've made up to connect all the dots. But you'll never get an accurate story because there isn't one. We're just a series of temporary moments of mind that just keep continuing. And according to Buddhism, it's always existed. Your stream of consciousness so that we don't have endless suffering. So that's sort of the idea behind it. You know, we may change bodies from life to life, but we have a continuum of mind. We can't remember our past lives because we don't have the concentration to do it. We're distracted. We need a physical support for our minds, the brain. If we get born in a mosquito body, good luck with that. That brain's not going to be very helpful. You know, but when we have a human rebirth, we have a very sophisticated support for the mind. An enlightened mind doesn't need a brain because it has no obstacles. So that's just a bigger topic we don't need. So anyway, so this idea that this mistaken notion of what the I is, how we exist, defines how we think everybody else exists, doesn't it? If you think self, what else do you think? Other, not me. Me, not me.
They think that everyone is wrong stream. I must stream.
Right. We don't have the same stream. We have different streams.
Are like
Yeah, what's called I. I'm thinking this. And I say, you're thinking that. Of course, you're saying I think this. You're thinking that. It's just a series of moments. It's only because of language that we need to label an I. If we could have telepathy, we wouldn't need
And like
that.
this.
The streams don't cross over. Does your mind ever become my mind?
Feel like they can.
Does that make it true?
It's true.
Well, the Buddha wouldn't say so. We can really have, I don't know what the technical word is, whether it's empathy, sympathy, and we can really come close to experiencing what someone else is feeling. Why can we do that? Empathy, but why?
We're all the same, that fundamental way.
We all want happiness. We don't want to suffer. And we can kind of see when someone's suffering, can't we? We can see joy in others. And we know what that feels like. So it's not like we're experiencing what they're experiencing, but we have, we've experienced similar states.
So when I'm reading and doing the class, so they're saying, we learn, we've always had it here and there, but if our minds aren't.
Wait a minute. I don't know. I'm not going to just assume that.
They're saying that we try, our minds need to put the mind somewhere to try to understand it. So we create a here and there with it. There is no here and there with it. We try to create space around it.
It's just our thoughts that are making it very, very, okay. I don't know whether to go there or not. Okay, because some of these questions are bigger. Okay, so, hey, Esther. Sneak on in. Nobody's gonna get upset. Oh, I'm glad you finally did, or took Uber. So, okay. God, I'm really having trouble today. Okay.
Bigger than.
Yeah, so. Didn't I say we're going to talk about how we're going to try to change this?
Ignore my question.
Okay. Partly because the way you're putting that, I'm having trouble even go. I know I don't want to know. Okay.
The duality.
No, let's not go there. Okay, we're just not going there at this moment. All right, because it's too hard. I'm weak. No, that's not true. Okay. So the idea is this. And most of us can at least accept this. You don't have to be Buddhist to accept this. That sometimes if we see it in children, like if you're a parent, you see your children do this, where they have a thought and then they keep running with that thought and they make things worse in their minds. They think about something their friend said today and then they, and they just run with it. And you kind of go, maybe they were just, maybe you didn't hear it right, or maybe you you try to shift them from this story they've got in their minds that, oh, they probably thought this and they probably thought that, and blah, blah, blah. Teenage girls are really good at this, at least my background is a teenage girl, So we also do that as adults. We've been doing it for a long time. So we want to kind of jump into those conversations and observe them. So one way to do that is when you sit quietly, you notice what your thoughts are, and you notice that they change. And then you notice what you do with some of your thoughts, like make up a story. You kind of run with it. So what we want to start doing is noticing if there's unease underneath that shift. It's sort of like when we're bored, so we do something else for a minute.
Oops, I think they lost connection. Are you guys also having issues? Is she kind of coming in and out? Oh, yes, okay, well. Thanks for bearing with us. We got to work on our internet connection. Let's see if we can get them back on. Thanks for your patience.
She's back, Nicole, but she's muted.
Ta-da, I'm back.
Okay, thanks.
It must automatically mute non-host. So now we've been pleasantly distracted for a second. Okay. Getting familiar with that sense of unease. You know, that like just, it can be physical discomfort. I just heard that unease, you know, that was easy, you know. But there's also a mental unease, and we want to discover it, and we want to watch what it's, you know, encouraging us to do. Like physical unease usually tells us to move. What happens if we move every time?
It becomes habitual. It tells us what to do. It becomes automatic. We're not thinking. We're not slowing down.
Don't build the discipline.
We don't
telling our
stop
mind.
moving. We just, you know, and this is what we do with our chasing, or wanting to fix unease. We constantly try to placate our unease with food, drink, with conversation, with TV shows, with, you know, just shifting, you know, instead of just staying with the unease and going, what's that about? Because tolerance of unease, simple tolerance of unease, can help us so that it never builds up to rage or to addiction. You know?
Addiction.
Yeah. Have you ever eaten a whole chocolate cake? Probably not. But if you've ever eaten a whole bag of potato chips, you kind of know what this is.
Like Gallup.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Actually, Gallup used to do that. He had to give it all up. You know, the Tibetans come to the West and discover things like ice cream. And it's like, oh, this is pretty good. But you do have to watch how much of it you eat. So, but it's, you know, yes.
This is certain things have built up. Not so you're saying doesn't have.
We don't have to go up. We can get off the roller coaster. That does not mean we don't enjoy things. It's that we don't take that enjoyment and create a big story about it that thinks that happiness is in it. I have to have this again. No, you can just enjoy it. And when it ends, no big deal. But we have to watch how we're thinking in order to discover the ways in which we are not accepting the end of the pleasantness. You know?
So when mindfulness talks about a beginner's mind, it's kind of like, forget you've already done it. Just do it again this time without all the attachment to.
See, this is one of the things that we do. We think that mind is something. It's a stream. They call it a stream for a reason. That this moment of mine gives rise to the next moment of mine. Guess what? There's nothing in between. In that space, you know, we can choose responses. There's space between thoughts.
Aren't those also moments?
Those space between thoughts? No. It's a space between that. But it isn't this continuous thing. It's not like bubble gum that's pulled out, and pulled a taffy. And there's something, no. It's like candle flames. You light a candle and you take that candle to light the next candle. Both of those flames have their direct cause as being the same thing, a flame, but they're not the same moments of flame. Our mind is just a series of mental events. And the more that we can learn to settle our mind, the more space we discover between these mental events.
Sometimes in meditations also say about the finding this space between thoughts, right? Thought comes, the clouds go in the sky, but there is the blue in between. Where do you find that blue, and can you stay in that blue, not that effects that the cloud carries?
Because the nature of mind is calm and clear. Because it's empty.
I'm watching my mind right now, feeling those two candles.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm fascinated with this idea. When faced with unease, sit with it and say, what's this about? Because I think I heard, because it will help you to not choose the vice or whatever activity it is that assuages that of unease.
It's to help you get off the roller coaster.
So how long does that take?
It's a second.
So sitting with it and saying what this is.
Well, it
about?
depends on what it is, right? If it's boredom and sitting in meditation, you can either fuel it by going, yeah, I'm uncomfortable. You might not actually think in words or anything, but you squirm, you kind of, what's the point of this? There's something going on, underneath it, and it's hard to just say, just sit. This is, I'm trying to learn to control my mind, discipline my mind. So I'm just going to go back to the breath and not wait for the entertainment to begin, But when you're doing analytical meditation, so you're doing the same thing. You're sitting there quietly, and then you notice, I'm tired of this. And you see where your mind went next, you kind of go, oh, okay, now it's thinking about lunch. That'll be nice. And, all of a sudden that goes away. And you're thinking about, I don't know, football. And then that goes away. Oh, now I'm thinking, what's all that about? But what is it about? Why do we have monkey mind? Discomfort and stillness. Discomfort with the unease that the stillness is generating, or, that it's a condition for. Language is so tricky. But it's this, and what we're habituated to is fixing it. There's some sort of unease, so we get a cup of coffee. There's some sort of unease, so we start daydreaming. There's some sort of, and even our daydreams don't last. We have to change subjects. It's like flipping channels, like, so if you're sitting in a silent meditation and you're bored out of your skull, you're going to think so many different things because you're going to just go somewhere, and you're going to, but that won't hold your attention either. Because the point is you don't know how to hold your attention. Because if you hold your attention, you'd be on the breath. Or you'd be on whatever you're trying to analyze, compassion. So in this example, you're trying to hold your attention on the unease, and just notice. Unease might be arising from physical discomfort.
What if you replace
It doesn't, positive thinking can help you, if it's with wisdom, help you not have the unease for long, you know, come and you go, oh, I'm just, you know, whatever. This won't last forever, you know, because sometimes that's what positive thinking is. This will end, you know, especially with a silent meditation. You should have seen me when I started. I mean, it was just like, oh my God, 30 more minutes. You've got to be kidding me. Oh, it's just torture, 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 torture. Why? Because I made it torture. So positive thinking, it just depends. We don't want to lie to ourselves. You know, it's not like we have to sit there and go, oh, my knee doesn't really hurt, or I'll just focus on this part that doesn't hurt, which is a smart strategy, by the way. But, you know, it's just, or if I focus on the knee that hurts, it will pass. I'll notice when I'm no longer thinking about it, because we lose our focus. It's so fascinating. Yeah.
Why do you wish to?
Wishing to be happy, there's nothing wrong with wishing to be happy, but you want that, and it just depends on what's going on with it, you know? So if that wish to be happy is based on understanding that I can choose happiness, I can choose to see the positive stuff in life, I can choose, and that's really what we do need to do that, you know? Well, but the key to it is then not grasping at that, because one morning you're going to wake up and you can't seem to choose to be happy, and that's okay. It's about not really thinking it's a big deal. Right. I mean, you can, I mean, it's sort of like, it's like in Buddhism, we talk a lot about cherishing others. So we can, one simple way to deal with our I is to kind of tell it to get over itself. You know, like, oh, poor you, you know. There are millions of beings out there, billions of people. There, I don't even know, quadrillion sentient beings, you know, so we can just get off of yourself. You know, this is where you want to look for that I. Well, I just want something different. Well, gee whiz, you know, aren't you something special? You know, sometimes we have to see how we, you know, how we're holding ourselves as precious, you know, and need to be in a sort of like, you know, one of those nice little cozy, I don't know, I don't use any of these things. We're in Florida, it's hot. So, you know, I don't know, maybe I'm in a cozy cup. I don't know. Holding that cool in. Yeah, so we need to, you know, because this is part of this is one of the things that we have to look at. This is why we want to look for the I in the unease. And maybe that's not worth thinking it's so important. And that unease will pass. Yeah.
Also recognizing that happiness is not pleasure, but just love.
Yeah, it's just not suffering. So there's something to be said for just peace. Because, and again, this does not mean we don't enjoy things. It's that we just don't have to enjoy things to be okay. We can have a terrible meal and be okay. You know, we can have an uncomfortable conversation with a partner and be okay. You know, that things don't have to give us pleasure in order to not be avoided. I mean, sometimes, you know, sometimes it's our resistance to what's going on now, like the car that won't start, you know, and just kind of going, oh, well, you know, won't start. Oh, well, I'm going to be late. Oh, well, you know, kind of thing. You know, every moment doesn't have to be the chocolate cake. What we want to discover is how often that's what we are demanding of life. To look at our mind and to recognize my thoughts are creating a story that somehow says, you know, I need some sort of pleasure in this moment. And of course, we're surrounded in a society that thinks that's where happiness is, you know. So commercials are constantly telling us if you get these things, you're going to be happier. You're going to have more fun. You'll be more social. I don't know, all that stuff. You know, watching beer commercials, you'd think we never had a bad day ever, you know. So, you know, I mean, this is in it, but we need to see that we don't just do it in those exaggerated ways. We also do it one little step at a time, one little thought at a time. We try to get rid of the unease. So learning how to just tolerate the unease. Okay, I won't move. You know, that doesn't mean you're going to torture yourself. Just means, okay, I'm just not going to move. See if I see how long. I even notice that I'm not moving. You know, how long it doesn't, you know, that you're uncomfortable and you don't change the air condition level. You know, how long do you go before you have that sweet thing that would just be so nice, you know? How long do you go? You know, it's just a matter of just kind of going, God, I'd like to get up and just take a break from work. And you just don't. Maybe it's the opposite, you know? And sometimes we just need to take that walk. We need to take, you know, the unease is such that if we just get up and shake it off, we can do it that way, you know, and go back. But what do we have to use? What are we telling ourselves when we go back to work?
When the unease is telling us to get up.
Well, when you get up and then you go back to work. But not only that,
It's a responsibility.
you have a
To
responsibility to go back to work.
have to fulfill it.
Well, yeah, it's just that, okay, I want to be able to eat, so working's good. You know, I want, you know, you have to remember that this is not, no one's forcing you to do this. We do this out of choice. You know, it seems like, oh, but I don't really have any choice. Well, yeah, it's true. We have to eat. So we have to have a method to get the food. We need shelter. So we have to have a method. Well, work is how we've done that. You know, it used to be agricultural work and we built our own houses and we, you know, grew our own food. And, you know, then we started to realize, oh, if we trade food, oh, blah, blah, blah. So, you know, but it's recognizing that, okay, I can say that I have no freedom to choose here. Well, go someplace else and discover what that really means. Because there are places where people really don't have a choice. You know, we have lots of choices. But we can't, you know, and we can choose to just starve. You know, it's just we don't want to do that. And that's a choice. And that's fine. You know, so it's really about, it's like we have responsibilities. We're choosing those responsibilities. We choose to have children. You know, we have all sorts of responsibilities with that. You know, fortunately, they're cute and cuddly and all that kind of stuff in the beginning. So then, you know, it seems worthwhile. Then later on, it's kind of like, yeah, what was I thinking? But as this how the world goes around, isn't it? You know, it's just, you know, so it's lightening up in those moments to moments when we realize, God, I always seem to be kind of unhappy or kind of just blah, you know, probably because of the way you're thinking. Probably because of the way you're approaching things. And you want to look at that and choose differently, you know, to really say, well, you know, if you're constantly resenting other people, then you want to really look at, do I enjoy this? Is this helping my life? Or is it detracting from my satisfaction in life? You know, so what can I do with that? Well, sometimes it's like, well, I'm not going to continue my relationship with so-and-so because it's, you know, it's because I hate them. Other times it's just this recognition that, you know, it's a ebb and flow. Nobody's going to be perfect. I'm not perfect. My friends won't be perfect. My job's not going to be perfect. You know, it's just like that. And that's okay. And we're keeping resenting. Yes, I can notice everything in the world that's going wrong. You know, and there's nothing wrong with choosing to help that, you know, to doing something to try to affect change. That's sort of how we can continue functioning. You know, we don't try to affect change in our climate problem. Guess what? This planet won't be inhabitable, you know, that's not brilliant on our part, but it's just, you know, it doesn't mean we have to sit here going, you know, it's always been hard. The Buddha says it's because we create the cause for these unfortunate circumstances. But we can start changing that by looking at our minds, because it's all from the mind. You can see how, you know, if you, I was looking at an article this morning about trafficking in women or trafficking in babies or whatever, trafficking, you know, and this idea that, you know, that people have the mind that look at something like a human being and go, oh, that's just an object of sex for me. They've trained their mind to end up there. And we do that with the way we respond to pleasure. You know, we kind of, it becomes something for us because it's always been about us, because we do everything from that perspective of I want this, I don't want that. That can lead to the mind that just sees things, beings, people as objects to be used. You know, so feeling all superior to people who are like that is not recognizing our own habits of mind that lead to that. So this work on our minds is important. You know, if we do live life after life after life, and this continuum mind continues and continues and continues, you don't want to become that. You know, so you do it when it's easy. Yes, Gladys.
Just reminded me, I was born so right like 20 years ago.
Oh, yep.
And all of a sudden we went on a tour. You're talking about training their mind, right? We were on a tour and I separated a little bit from my group. I had about 8 kids throwing rocks at me.
Yep.
So it's like, you train your mind, they're little. And I'm like, I'm not gonna throw rocks at the kids, you know?
Yeah, of course.
I'm calling my guide.
But it does mean you probably did in some previous life. Stay run away from responsibility in this teaching. Boy, that sucks. But, you know, means you have control by not responding that way and recognizing, oh, this is some habit of mine that makes someone do this. Children do this, you know? So I don't want that kind of mind. So it isn't that we don't assess what happens. But we want to recognize that we're not better than, worse than, blah, blah, blah. We're just, you know, people who don't have control over our minds. And some habits of mind are more destructive than others. And maybe we want to try to make our minds less destructive than others. Yes, Esther.
That you are using, instead of being a person, is an animal. Like you got a cat.
That's a person in Buddhism.
Yeah, right.
Because it's a mind.
So it doesn't make it less bad.
No.
People getting pets just for their joy, whatever.
Well, so, I mean, it might be for mutual benefit, just like any relationship. So it's more like you want to really think, you know, like people who get guard dogs and they don't love the dogs at all. They just literally keep them chained up in their yard to try to keep themselves from being harmed by others. You know, that's pretty self-centered, you know, so you want to watch that kind of mind. So, but, you know, there are lots of ways in which animals help people that are probably going to lead them to a human rebirth future. Support animals, guide dogs, all that kind of stuff. So we've been there. We'll be there again.
To the trafficking for a second, because I had discussed when you said it for the person who would take advantage of a child or a girl or someone who doesn't have the power to fight or whatever, making all that up, right? The story I have with it. And then you went, well, we're no better than anyone else. And then I go, but I guess in the book he talks about spiritual levels can create, I think he even uses the word better or whatever. I don't know if he means.
But they're better actions than others. And we all have Buddha potential. We all have the capacity to be a Buddha. So we're not better than others in that way.
So my actions would be more conducive to something rather
To
than.
no,
better
not
than
harm.
this.
It's the judging of people as if they are a thing that are not just a moment of mental events. We make it permanent. They're bad. They're permanently bad. There's no hope for them. You hope me, you know, we don't get rid of people. I mean, if the Buddha's worldview is correct, we're stuck with all of us always, forever. So we want to help. I'm sorry. So we want to help people not become that. And we want to help people deconstruct their ways of thinking so that they can stop that, you know? Because they're no throwaway people, because they're no throwaway minds, because the mind just keeps going. But that's another big topic. I mean, that's, you know, you kind of had to be Buddhist to kind of go there, you know? So, yes, Barry. Excuse me.
You know, it's kind of like the project.
Yep.
that You're doing itself, because I think people will label people from those experiences or the reasons that they have to be in. That those are just the same experiences, so someone didn't get caught by the police to then go into those scenarios. I mean, like, it can go further, but at the same time, exactly, minds are, you know.
Yeah. And, but, yeah, but we don't start in the same place, do we? If you notice that babies have their own personalities and, you know, that little kids becoming out, we bring our minds with us. So we already have habits that resurface. So we don't start from scratch, you know, which is why it's so hard to change. You know, the habits are really, really old and they're very powerful, but it doesn't mean we can't change. We have all changed habits, haven't we? All of us. So it's just a matter of looking at what we want to change and then start to notice, bringing our wisdom to the way we think so that we can start going, maybe that's not right. Maybe I'm making a leap there about this or that, you know? And so best to not make that judgment. Just, you know, and what often happens is you'll start to have less conversations with yourself because so many of them are pointless. They're not helping you get anywhere. They're just, no. So if you want to make yourself miserable, you know, you keep thinking about these sources of misery, you know. Because we can, you know, we all know we can make ourselves get angrier and angrier and angrier and angrier. We can make our desire just unmanageable, you know, to where we stop on our way home from work to, you know, get the pack of cigarettes, to get the chocolate cake, to get the whatever, you know. But we want to be able to catch it when we're just talking about, do I want to squirm? When it's really a low level of unease. So then we can handle when a big thing happens and we're afraid of losing our minds because we can't handle it. We want to learn that actually we pretty much can handle anything as long as we have some practice. Well,
Say controlling, what are we controlling? Are we controlling
the next moment.
the next mental event that comes
Right.
up and like what direction it's taking? Like,
Yeah.
a good direction.
Or we might not even, you know, it's sort of like, I'm not going to dwell there. Like, say you're starting to ruminate over something, you know, and you just kind of go, no, not going to follow that. And then comes back and you go, nope, not going there. Then comes back, not going there. You know, this takes practice. And it also takes this acceptance, this determination that the way I'm thinking is causing me suffering. It's causing me pain. It's causing me dissatisfaction. It's making me a grumpy person. You know, we have to recognize those habits and then make the decision. I'm going to try stopping those habits because it's not going to stop by itself, obviously. Yeah. Yeah. We think that all our thoughts are true, don't we? And we validate, well, if I feel it, you know, Well, yeah, you feel it. That's true. You know, I'm not going to argue with, you know, that you feel it. But is it based on any kind of reality? We feel all sorts of things. We just have dreams and we know, you know, I mean, it doesn't mean it's based on any kind of reality. You know, we need to really understand that we don't have to believe everything we think. We just simply do not have to believe everything we think. We are often wrong, mistaken, on the wrong track. You know how when you say sometimes, oh, I can hear my father's voice back there. I can hear my mother's voice back there, you know? A lot of our perspectives are distorted. In fact, all of them are distorted. Let's start small, you know? The good news is the fact that we're trying to lessen the sense of I, as if there is an I, as if there's a story that you can say, you know, this was Abraham Lincoln, you know, and have a complete picture. There's no way to do that. You can't do that with yourself. You can't do it with others. You know? So I was going somewhere with this. I'm sure it was profound. Okay.
You said the good news is.
The good news is, you would really hope I could remember that. The good news is we are all valuable. We can all become Buddhas. We are all worthwhile. Just because there's not this self that we have to make all self-important doesn't mean that somehow we're nobody. That's not it. It's just that we are all part of like an ecosystem of sentient beings, you know, of minds, you know, and the more that we have harmony and work together and all that stuff, the better off we'll all be, you know, instead of grasping at this I as being somehow more worthy of protection or, you know, whatever, than that I, you know, this divisive way of thinking. And we do it with ourselves and we kind of go, they've just criticized me. I'm all bad. You know, we're doing that same divisiveness that we're all one thing or the other, all, you know, that black and white thinking, that dualistic thinking. And it's just not true. You know, but we're, you know, it's not the Buddha saying, oh, you're just flawed. No, actually, the Buddha is saying you can't imagine the capacity of your mind. And mind and heart are the same words. They don't make this distinction between, you know, like love somehow is an emotion. No, love is wisdom, a type of wisdom. It's wishing others to be happy. Nothing wrong with that. You know, nothing stupid about that. So it's this, you know, this is the good news. And that we can all have the capacity to figure it out because we all already have wisdom. We have some compassion, we have love, we have generosity, we have patience. You know, it's about giving more, fueling those states of mind more than the anger, the jealousy, the pettiness, the, you know, whatever all the garbage we put in our minds is. You know, it isn't about not assessing things, not being able to say, oh, this person's taking advantage of me. You know, I'm not going back to this mechanic because I don't trust their what they do to my car. You know, I mean, it's not about that. It's about not hating people or thinking people are just doing something to me. You're not the center of the universe. They are. You know, they're acting just like we are. There is no us and them. It's all us. Yeah.
Speaking of mind and heart, to say something like life is eternal, I can acknowledge that intellectually with my mind, or I can embrace it with my heart. Two different dynamics are possible. So for me, I find it hard to say that mind and the heart are the same. For me, they are.
And you can keep holding on to that. Yeah.
But the example, I mean, it's real. And for me, it's real. I feel one thing when I
Here.
hear something like life is eternal, I can intellectualize it and not feel anything.
Because it's just a philosophy.
Or I can embrace it and feel something with my heart.
Yeah.
In addition to the mind.
No,
So
but it's another thought though, isn't it? It's still mine. It's not just not that in what you're calling intellectual mind. It's still mine.
But it's a sensation that's separate from the mind.
No, the mind is not physical, first of all. So you are conflating the fact that you feel your heart move, because there is something different. And this is what we mean. This is really important to you because of your question a few weeks ago. When we alternate single pointed meditation and analytical meditation, so you're analyzing, right? And then you have this experience of some truth or something more true or whatever, however your experience is. You want to stay there and put your single pointed concentration on it so you don't lose it. So it becomes really familiar so that, you never forget that actually our hearts can include everybody, but it's all mind. It's all working with the mind. It's just not all thoughts of mind are similar.
Starts with the mind.
It is mind, according to Buddhism. I mean, we can argue all day long, but according to Buddhism, it's mind because the mind doesn't need this body at all. An enlightened mind's not trapped in the body. It's everywhere. So it's just Buddhism. I mean, you can hold your view. I don't have any problem with your view. But if the Buddhist view is that it's all mind. That's why love and compassion are states of mind we want to develop. Anger, envy, impatience, our minds greed, our minds we don't want to develop. It's minds we want to abandon. Right now, because of our physical body, because of these sensations we feel with our thoughts, and it does feel differently, doesn't it? An intellectual thought. And that's why in meditation, you want to generate the experience. The intellect's not enough. Yeah, but it's still mind. And we want the kind of mind. A Buddha experiences everything directly. It's no longer this thought. So everything is experienced directly. Wisdom is experienced directly. And it's all blissful. That sounds pretty good. It's not boring. If you're afraid it's going to be boring, because there's no more sex or something, it's not boring. So what can I tell you? Let's end on that note. We all know where our thoughts go now, so okay. Okay. I'm not going to, no. So, all right. Okay, so now we want to, take this energy that we've been struggling with our minds and try to think about, try to stay awake, all the different ways we've been trying to work with our minds, and first of all, rejoice. This is really a useful thing to do with your time, is to really try to get to know the way you think better so that we can make better choices with how we think and get somewhere, So according to Buddhism, these leave imprints on the mind. They will ripen as positive things in the future. So we want to dedicate that they ripen in a certain way. So if you could share the screen. And this is page 244, I think. And if you could hit that little positive arrow to increase the text. Thank you. Okay, so now we're dedicating it to be a benefit to everyone in different ways. It's on page 244. I think, or 246, one of the two. 46. The long life prayers are 244. Okay, so I'm going to have to enlarge my screen here. May all beings everywhere, plagued by sufferings of body and mind, obtain an ocean of happiness and joy by virtue of my merits. May no living creature suffer, commit evil, or ever fall ill. May no one be afraid or belittled with a mind weighed down by depression. May the blind see forms and the deaf hear sounds. May those whose bodies are worn with toil be restored on finding repose. May the naked find clothing, the hungry find food. May the thirsty find water and delicious drinks. May the poor find wealth, those weak with sorrow find joy. May the forlorn find hope, constant happiness, and prosperity. May there be timely rains and bountiful harvests. May all medicines be effective and wholesome prayers bear fruit. May all who are sick and ill quickly be freed from ailments, whatever diseases there are in the world. May they never occur again. May the frightened cease to be afraid and those bound be freed. May the powerless find power and may people think of benefiting each other. For as long as space remains, for as long as sentient beings remain, until then, may I too remain to dispel the miseries of the world. And then page 244 or two, yeah. Always assume the long life prayers come after. Okay, for His Holiness the Dalai Lama, in the land encircled by snow mountains, you are the source of all happiness and good. All powerful Chenrezig, Tenzin Gyatso, please remain until samsara ends. For Lama Zopa Rinpoche, you who uphold the subduer's moral way, who service the bountiful bearer of all, sustaining, preserving, and spreading Manjana's victorious doctrine, who masterfully accomplish magnificent prayers honoring the three jewels, Savior of myself and others, your disciples, please, please live. So thanks. And you know, like, I really encourage you to try to read some of this book. It's online. It's a very short book, you know, but, and then kind of like try to see if you understand it or debate it or question it, but bring your questions, you know, really kind of, because it says some far reaching kind of ideas in it, you know. But didn't go into a whole lot of detail about it. So, you know, bring it with you. How's everybody at home? Miss you. Glad you're there.
So wonderful, wonderful
Oh, hi,
teaching.
Mary.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you,
Feel the
Venerable
praise.
Tenjin.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. It really wasn't an opening for all that, but good to see you. All right. All right, guys. Any
Bye,
announcements? Any announcements? Oh,
Check out the website.